Before we go on, I too would like to acknowledge that we are on Bidjigal country today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Well, as I mentioned, I'm just delighted to be with you here today for what we hope will be a really important, insightful and hopefully inspiring day, bringing together a variety of people from different backgrounds and a wide range of sectors in the room here today to really delve deep into discussions around enhancing food security and equity. We're hopeful that by the end of the symposium tomorrow, that we'll have taken the first steps towards really creating a community here from this room, which is all about sharing ideas and experiences and working together to achieve food security and building healthier and more resilient communities that thrive. That's the ultimate goal, is to come together and start working on some tangible outcomes, some recommendations that can be taken to governments. Now, we are recording the day, as I mentioned, and we've got people joining us virtually, so thank you for tuning in wherever you are in the world. For those of you that are participating online, you can post your questions or provide feedback via the online poll on the CVent app. And for those of us here in the room, you too can share your thoughts throughout the day using the app, or if you're old school like me, there's also a suggestion box up the back, so you can take your pick, but we want to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your comments on the day. Now, we've been brought together by Aboriginal Affairs New South Wales, who has proposed a revised way of working and definition of food equity to better reflect that food security factors include so many things, including people, culture, environment, and many other factors. Now, the proposed definition tries to consider our local context and a vision for the future. So the definition is, when all sectors are working together through frameworks and mechanisms that respect and deliver the human right to food for all people at all times, with nutritional values strengthening positive physical, mental and cultural well-being. It is also climate neutral and supports the restoration, protection of our environments, cultures, communities, local economies and future from climate change. Now, that definition is also on these posters on this side of the room if you want to, throughout the day, take a closer look and have a closer read. And we're asking you to consider this definition throughout the day. Let us know, do you agree? Do you not agree? How does it sit with what's needed to achieve food equity for all? So, as I mentioned, we really want your feedback because it will help inform the pathways forward. And it really is quite a rare thing to have this many people in a room. I believe we've got about 170 participants here and about as many as 60 joining us online. So really encourage you to put forward your ideas, questions, comments and feedback as the day goes on. Indeed, if you don't get the opportunity to give your feedback today or when the workshops continue tomorrow, if you, like me, sometimes a couple of days down the track, you have a great idea reflecting back on what you've heard. So all feedback is welcome, even if it's after the event. And this card that's in your bags has all of the ways in which you can share your feedback, both here throughout the event and post the symposium. So this is very much a think tank. It's about coming together, big brains trust to start generating some ideas. So we really want to hear from you. We can't emphasise that enough. Now, if you've checked the program, you might have seen that Stan Grant was originally supposed to be here with us today, but you also might have caught the news in the last week or two that he's got an amazing new job with Monash University, which has seen him go over to Denmark. So he couldn't be here in the room with us today, but he has recorded a video for us, which we'll share a little later in the day. So I hope no one's too disappointed. We will get to hear from Stan Grant from the other side of the world. Now, before we get on with today, let's just go through some quick housekeeping. The toilets are in the sort of back corner of the complex, so out these doors and around to the left. The emergency exits, there's plenty of them, the green signs, so it was, plenty of escape routes. Hopefully we won't need to use them, but just follow the green signs should we need to evacuate. Now, hopefully you all have your name tags, which has a QR code on it, and you can scan that to check out today's agenda. And just a reminder about the Cvent app and the website where you can post your questions, comments throughout the day. And that applies to us here in the room as well as our friends joining the live stream. Now, any question that we don't get to answer live today can be answered by the Aboriginal Affairs New South Wales staff after the symposium, and they're the ones wearing the coloured staff lanyards, and maybe can the team put their hands up just so throughout the day, check in with them if you've got any questions. I'm also really excited to introduce Josie from Digital Storytellers, who is here today. Thank you, Josie. Now, she will be listening to all of our discussions here today and synthesise some of the key takeaways from our discussions and pulling it all together in a beautiful illustration, so visual representation of what we talk about. So we will be checking in with Josie throughout the day to see how that illustration is developing and watch all of our ideas come together in a really deadly illustration. So that will be fabulous to see that unfold throughout the day as we delve into these discussions. Well, now let's introduce our first speaker for the day. Shane Hamilton, a Waka Waka and Bundjalung man from Queensland, is a distinguished leader with executive experience spanning housing, corrections and professional services across diverse sectors. He's known for his transformative leadership to effect change and outcomes. He's been leading Aboriginal Affairs New South Wales as a Deputy Secretary in the newly formed Premier's Department for just over a year now. So please join me in welcoming Shane Hamilton.
Thanks, Natalie. Good morning, everyone. Firstly, let me begin by thanking Auntie Maxine for the welcome to country, and I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Bidjigal country and pay my respects to elders, both past and present. Great to see a fantastic turnout. Thank you very much for coming along. I'd like to also just acknowledge our staff at Aboriginal Affairs, and led by Sarah, for putting the event on and the organising of it. It takes, as you'd all appreciate, takes a lot of effort to do that, and we've been talking about this for quite some time, so it's great that we're finally here today to discuss a really important issue around food security. When we, in the last, you can appreciate we've been talking about this for quite some time, but Aboriginal people's food security has, well, let me start by beginning that we've actually cared for country and waterways for thousands and thousands of years. And our food security has only really come into, has been an issue for probably the last couple of 100 years, when essentially we were dispossessed of our land and our ability to sustain our food security. And we have struggled since that time, but thankfully we are slowly starting to see the production of our traditional foods back on country in many parts of Australia, but we still have a long way to go. And as an Aboriginal person to grow up, I grew up in Brisbane. My family are from Cherbourg Mission. We're Waka Waka people, and my father was born in Tweed Head, and grew up there on Bundjalung country. When we were reflecting on this and having conversations, and we were talking about food security and the definition of it and what it means, for many of the Aboriginal people that work at Aboriginal Affairs that appreciate this, we kind of looked at each other and said, yeah, that's how we grew up. You know, we ration food. You know, my great grandparents were given rations. They lived on a mission, like many Aboriginal families, and so they learnt how to sustain themselves despite being, as I say, dispossessed of land and forcibly removed. So we are survivors. The other question you might ask is, why is AA hosting this if it's a societal issue? Well, as I've just mentioned, we have lived experience with rationing food, and the pandemic shone a light on the scale of a known issue, and Aboriginal Affairs firsthand, the issue is bigger than the stats indicate. But the support's retracted after 2.5 years when the issue is growing. AA New South Wales has funded research to have empirical data on the scale and causes of the insecurity. The results are shocking. Most striking is the situation is just accepted, and it has been normalised that people have to make do, and we've been doing that for a very long time. That's the insidious part of food insecurity. The chokehold it has on communities is doing significant harm, and it's growing. It's becoming more complicated every day, yet it's not getting the attention, and that's not okay. So at Aboriginal Affairs, our work is focused on going to the source to resolve the issues, not wasting time, money, effort, and expectations with symptoms. Despite the passion in the room, we have to ask ourselves, what impact are we having on permanent change? For food security, we need to change approaches, pathways, partnerships, and work together holistically. We also need to challenge the attitude that just surviving is okay for everyone. At AA, we are leaders in encouraging and challenging people to hold courageous conversation, respectful conversations, to speak our histories, the facts, differing worldviews and agendas. And through these we can find common ground and move forward together stronger and better than where we started. That's why we're hosting this forum. It's not okay to maintain the status quo for any community. The impact of food insecurity is too costly on all accounts. For our efforts to be less than a focus at the causal level. Just surviving is not an acceptable standard of living. Communities need to be supported to thrive. Communities are relying on us to hold courageous conversations, not just here, but continue these conversations outside to affect the real and meaningful change that is needed. And so by nourishing these connections that you're going to make today, the idea is to build on each other's work for sustainable long-term changes. So we really want to hear what the big ideas, the opportunities are, and the commitments that we have in making a change. And then we will also release the collection of data, information that we gather today, the stories and ideas that you share publicly to help more people achieve food equity. Thank you.